because risk is a tricky concept. I told you in my doctoral work, I studied under Renee Stoltz, who's this guy who's known as one of the leading risk management experts on the planet. He had me proofreading this textbook. So it led me to think deeply about risk. And one thing about risk is that risk is a hard thing to kind of grab into. You know, when you kind of can feel when you're in a risky situation, right? Like my wife talks about in the 90s when she went to a Tupac party in Vegas, and she said, I came in the room and I felt scared and nasty. She said there were all these hoochie mamas with the little tight skirts on and little rooms in the back where people were doing stuff that they probably didn't tell their mamas about. And she said, I went to the bodyguard. She said, it was my last $20. See, people think me and my wife always been rich. No, we was both extremely broke at one point. She said, that was my last $20. She said, I went to the bouncer and begged him, please give me my money back. And he said, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry, ma'am. I can't give you a refund. And she said, please, that's my last $20. And she said, look at me. Look at how I'm dressed. Look at that. Look at her. Look at this. I do not belong here. So she's like, somebody gonna hurt me up in here. So she knew she was in a risky situation. She felt the risk. She perceived the risk, and she was probably right. It was a crazy kind of space. So we know what risk is. We know what it feels like. We know what it's like when you say, well, somebody's living a risky life. But when you're trying to really quantify it in the world of investing, it's tough. It's tough because number one, mathematicians, we have to translate that into numbers. Like, what does that really mean? If United Health is a riskier stock and the price drops, what numbers correlate to the amount of risk that's actually there? And the last and most tricky part of risk is that risk involves an element of predicting the future. Because you might think something's risky, but it may not be risky at all. My mother-in-law thinks that riding airplanes is risky. She really swears that if she gets on an airplane, that's going to be the one plane that day that's going to fall out of the sky. Anybody else? Give me a yes if you got a relative like that who will not get on an airplane. Some of y'all might be like that in this room. It's okay. I'm not making fun of you. You know what I'm talking about? Has anybody got any relatives like that? Right? Where they really think like, okay, even if it don't matter. You can't statistics and all it won't matter. You can say, well, the studies show that flying a plane is safer than driving in the car. Don't matter. They still want to get in the car. Right? Or if you say, well, 50,000 flights happened in the last 24 hours and not one of them crashed, doesn't matter. In their mind, getting on an airplane is almost like signing a death certificate. And that's because they have a certain perception of risk, and that is not always connected to reality. But then sometimes you can go into situations where you think that there is no risk, but it could be very risky. There could be risk lurking in the background. So risk is tough because risk is very subjective. It's in the eye of the beholder. It is also hard to predict. And you can sort of look at, and this is what makes, if you ever if you ever want to hang out and have a deep conversation about stuff like quantum computing and why it fascinates me so much, it's because quantum computing it's a perception of risk and probability where you live in multiple universes at the same time. You're measuring multiple realities at once. And that's what makes it so interesting and so powerful because quantum computing is the ultimate form of computing consciousness at this point. Quantum computers are faster than other computers by leaps and bounds because they have a level of consciousness that exceeds even the fastest supercomputers. That's why a quantum computer can solve a problem in 5 minutes that takes a supercomputer 25 septillion years. A septillion is one followed by 25 zeros. So it's far bigger than a billion or a trillion.